Since it's been introduced May 2023, the collection game has been a foundational part of every core strategy for Sorare Pro players that are looking to be competitive on the leaderboard. The collection bonus gives you the ability to get an extra bit of bonus on some of the most important cards in your lineups, in your club, in your gallery. But there's more to it than that. You need to really pick your battles, make your decisions correctly with what collection you're really going to go into, what players to enhance, and where it makes sense or not. I've done some videos on the channel recently, well, I say recently, at the beginning of the season, outlaying my strategy for the collection bonus in this European season. And with us now at the halfway point of the year, Sorare have just announced their 4th collection event, giving #1 collectors and a few instances and other ones, 2s and 3s of one-signed shirts and some other bits and pieces. And this feels like a great juncture to really evaluate the collection strategy that I've been deploying, as well as any top tips and lessons that have been learned this season so far at any point in the video today. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers. If you're brand new to Sorare and you're looking for a beginner's tutorial, that's linked in the description of this video, as well as a link that will get you all the new customer sign-up bonuses. That link supports the channel as well. So if you get stuck, if you need any help, just jump into the comment section and I'll sort you out. But if you're an existing Sorare player, I need you in the comment section on this one, and I need you to help me out. I've got a quandary, I've got a problem that needs solved for FC Barcelona in the video today. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. If you're going to be a competitive Sorare Pro player, you're going to need to nail your colours to the mast with a club or 2 or 3, depending on what scarcity you're going to live in and your actual budget for the game. Now, I'm a bit of a sucker. I love building FC Barcelona and my Sorare club with a real fingerprint, a real identity of me as a football fan, what players and what clubs I like to follow. And, I think they're going to have a good career and will do me well in Sorare fantasy football. And you can see from the collections I've got in the top row or two here, it is about the fandom. It's about the support for clubs I've got. Obviously, my boyhood club, Celtic, and then some adopted clubs like Leipzig and New York and Girona. Maybe we'll get some more Man City cards as we go on. They're a wee bit too pricey for me. But beyond this is where you then start to see a bit of the utility and a bit of the function of Sorare Fantasy Football and the benefit of the collection bonus coming into play to help some of the most important cards. Now, when you're moving into rares and super rares in particular, the 1% and the 2% bonuses are the ones that are going to occupy your mind the most, because they're the only ones that are theoretically on the table for a small amount of cards, or even just one card. But these bonuses will make the difference for some of your key players. A lot of these 1% here, like Girona, Tottenham, Seattle Sounders, Sevilla, Dundee, these are all here because of cards I've won. When you win a card, you're going to get that 1% bonus on them automatically. Some of these other 1%, like I did have a Florian Wirtz that was down as a first owner. It's a bit of a trade situation that happened last year that meant that was no longer the case. I went and got out a wee Frimpong just to get him back to that 1%, and that's a nice little bit of utility. And I don't really think you can really get more than 1 or 2 cards without utility to boost a card on the percentage, because at that point then you're starting to, hoard. You're starting to gather, cards that really, cost money. Number one, you will be spending money to buy them. And number 2, don't really add any key utility. I don't mind adding a second player in to get that 1%, because they'll both then enjoy that 1% in some instances. But ideally, a 1% bonus for rare and for super rare, you're going to try and grab that on a single card collection. At super rare, it's a wee bit easier if you get them on auction, or if you're lucky enough to get the #1 of on the secondary market. And if their jersey number is 1 to 10, obviously getting the jersey number might be a bit more possible. And you might think at first, super rares, that can be really difficult, but when guys aren't in favor, or if guys are at less fancied clubs, it's not really that difficult to achieve. But whether it be for rares or super rares, I always like to make sure any player that I'm going to be plugging into game week lineups, important ones on a regular basis, I can get every percentage possible out of them. Now, Ryan Gauld is kind of coming to my attention for doing this video, okay? He's on 70 collection points, and there's a few guys in this Vancouver setup that maybe I could pick up for a nominal amount, and it would maybe just kick him up a little bit. Now, I'm a bit of a sucker for a rookie, but spending £10, £8 on a player, it can feel a wee bit icky sometimes, especially if you're never ever going to get to use them. And if you are going to be building in more than 1 or 2 players into a collection, then very quickly 2% comes on the horizon, comes onto the agenda. Fortunately for me, I've got a few collections here that sit on 2% that have a few different kind of utility kind of lessons in them. Now, as you'll see, as some of these clubs and these collections develop, through rares, and maybe for super rares, but mainly for rares, I like to try and aim at a club that's overstacked in a position. And, you know, throughout the joys of Sorare, you can wait for them to migrate around world football and get some transfers. With older collections, these things are probably in play already, like my Valencia collection, where I've got a lot of midfielders that none of them play for Valencia anymore. And there's another one or two like Kang In Lee, Coquelin, Rodrigo. There's a few guys here that still kind of play Jose Gaia, that might be Killison, that might be somewhat useful if I was to bring them in. But this collection is never really going to get to that 3% mark. The amount of cards on the secondary market I would need to pick up is frankly obscene, so that's never going to happen. But I've got a good Valencia kind of midfield kind of cohort that live in that 2% bubble. Now, I won Atake Kubo. I got the 1% on that card as a first owner, and that did open me up to, can I get a second card in this club that, you know, Real Sociedad, I've got a lot of fantastic players I could maybe get, you know, on auction, or maybe a wee jersey number, a wee number one of. And, you know, fortunately, I managed to get a Zacharian on jersey number, which was fantastic, which means with 2 cards, I'm able to get a bit of a 2-card trick on the go to get up to 2%, which means both of those guys have got a 2% kicker, which is absolutely fantastic. I've got a similar thing on the go with Shakhtar on a bit of a lower end scale. I got a bit lucky with Konya Planka. I managed to get a jersey number there. And then filling out with guys like Solomon and Marcos Antonio, very, very cheap players. It gets Trubin, who is a #1 platform riding goalkeeper at the moment, up to 2% is extra fun. And I think for rares and for super rares, that's the kind of how many cards are we looking at in these collections? Usually 3, 4, 5 at an absolute push. It takes a lot of volume to really get to the top end of this little scale that we're on now, the 2% one. And the sort of players that, for me, we're looking at goalkeepers, we're looking at key midfielders so far, guys that are going to plug in and play to a variety of different lineups, maybe some caps, maybe some ones that will become podium dangerous depending on the fixture and the form and the fitness of the player, the 3Fs of Sorare, all that good stuff. But the ones in the 2%, they just get you like ahead of the pack a little bit for some of these key players, some of these kicker players, your goalkeeper, your star man, your captain, whatever it might be. I think for every competitive Sorare club, but you really do need to get a foothold, you need to get a position in a couple of clubs, like we mentioned in the intro of the video. Nail your colours to the mast a little bit. Now, when I look at my collections that I've managed to pick up, I'm just about to push the Leipzig one onto 3%, and this is the poster child for me of the sort of club that, for Sorare purposes, if you're going to take your emotions out of it and you're going to think very analytically or moneyball wise or whatever, this is exactly the sort of club you want to be targeting. One that is very active in the transfer market and does have, you know, at the time, a surplus of talent in a lot of key positions. I've got some defenders here, which is good. And I mainly think of my Leipzig collection, although it's kind of developed into a midfield one now as well. But I do really think of Angelino, Guardiol as a defensive kind of unit, and then the rest of these guys kind of help them get up. Now, obviously, Forsberg's made a great move. We've brought him in, and Kunku we've not managed to enjoy yet. And Leimer has also moved to Bayern, which is fantastic. So it's a bit of midfield and defence in here, and these are all top-end guys. I think each one of them, if fit and available and playing and whatever, the guys I've named certainly, you know, they can break over 70 in a few different game weeks quite feasibly. And having a higher volume of guy that can break over 70. The thing with stacking, when you first get the collection on board, is you're not going to be able to use them all because only 11 players can play for the one team. But if they are overstacked in some of these positions, you know, if you go to older collections, like I mentioned already, these things have already happened. If you're picking up a brand new collection today, this is a bit of the pain that you need to suffer in the immediate term. Ride through some transfer windows and wait for some players to move on. At the top end of the leaderboard, your big hitting defender, your captain, your forward, whatever it might be, the 3% mark that we're not quite at with this Leipzig team yet, and that I'm not even quite at yet with Celtic collection from last season, despite having a fair amount of cards, a one of Aaron Moy that I got on auction, 33 Matt O'Reilly, which is brilliant, and a couple of other cards, you know. So the 3% mark does get quite pricey to get to, and it does come at a premium. Now, especially at rare and super rare level, this is going to be very rarely attained by, you know, the majority of people, you know, in a lot of different categories. Now, there's always going to be outliers in Wales and blah, 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 the guys at the top of the leaderboard on the actual collection side of things, of course, that will be, you know, more powerful than you if you were to come face to face with them, card for card on the leaderboard. But once you do get into that 3% mark, it really does separate your average guys from the average guys out there. The only 3% collection I've got unlocked at the moment is a super rare one, and I think this is a perfect example of the value of moving the collection to the 3% mark at your stretch scarcity. You know, so if you're a limited player, you may be thinking about rares being the holy grail of your migration of your club, your journey of your club. so on and so forth around the food chain. But whatever your stretch one is, getting to 3% is going to be so valuable for when you can get a competitive team out the go. Because if you've got some run-of-the-mill guys that are just a little bit more boosted up, it gives you a better chance against the field. This collection's got a lot of great examples of this. Bernard Espinosa, I got on auction, number two, you know, whatever. Or did I get it on secondary market, maybe? I think I did secondary market, apologies. He'll be a 50-point card. He's went from obscurity, a DNP merchant. He's moved to Colombia. 48 in his first game, scored a goal in his second game. He's living the life. Unfortunately, not all the transfers have worked out that great. Santi Bueno, I hoped to actually use, and this transfer was actually rather annoying. Callens went to Blue X. But Couto's kicking on. Reniers in Italy. Keba's now went to La Liga 2 in this January window. So this January window, I've got not just one DNP in Keba, who I paid 60 quid for or something like that as a one-off super rare on auction. And Espinosa, who was like 20 quid. Both of those guys migrated, you know, hopefully for the better in this January window. You know about Riquelme, you know about Herrera, you know about Stuani. So there's a nice little number of cards here. And because they're super rare, you know, the number 2 became valuable for me in the secondary market. I did get Couto on auction. I did get Kebe on auction. And I got Stuani on the secondary market. So if you can get lucky with some of the numbers, you know, maybe with super rare, getting to 3% isn't as hard as it is with rare, because with rare, those first 10 jersey mints normally gets gobbled up on auction by the big accounts that are building the collection and then subsequently don't release them back into the market. But at super rare level, you know, there's less of that protectionism or whatever the word is for it kind of going on. The way I've set up for this now is I need to add in the stars of Girona. I've built out a lot of the fodder, but I've not got a Miguel Gutierrez, an Arnau Martinez, an Aliesh Garcia. Maybe you put Romeu and Martin into that conversation along with Castellanos or Saganikov. So there's like 5 or 6 players there, and I'm hoping I actually get this one all the way up to 4%, and I've worked out the maths. If I get those people in alone, I will achieve that. And the 4% mark is the guys that are, you know, you might not have a full stack. Maybe you do on the 14% to 15% mark, but the guys that rein in on these collection bonuses, you really do feel it. When they bring in a high 50 score and above, that extra 4%, you really do feel it in their score. It can save some guys from really killing your team. Like if they bring in like a 46 or something like that, you can maybe save it a little bit more. But this is a 4% Celtic collection that has got tons of Champion Edition cards. A lot of first owners, maybe not as many as I would like, because I had guys like Kyogo and Jota originally and other kits and stuff like that. But I've even got an OP James McCarthy here for 90 collection points, and I'm still only at 4%. I could get to the 5% if I went and filled the collection out, I think. But again, at rare, I know at limited 5% is much more common, but at rare and above, it is very, very, very rare to come by, very expensive to come by. And if you can attain it for, you know, any club, that 5% can make a big difference on the game weeks that they turn up. At the moment, the only club I've managed to reach this with is New York City, of course. Regular viewers of the channel will know I was building this collection full jersey number if possible before the collection game even came out. So I've been playing with this collection ever since the thing came out. The problem is a lot of these cards have actually transferred. Some of them not that great. Some of them actually very good. But the majority of them are still at New York, and New York were crap last year. This is the team that were MLS champions. You know, they won the cup the season before. I'm an NYC fan since inception. And the season before, they only had big head cards. So I didn't really want to get that full collection. You can see the little star above the badge. And then in this season, this squad went on and won Campeones Cup, which is like the Super Cup between MLS and Mexico. So really happy. This is a kind of heart over head collection, but I think, again, similar to the Leipzig one, it's a good makeup of a club, one that's very active in the transfer window and only acquires players of certain profiles and breeds. So then you've got a good indication of what the rest of their career might look like, who they might be useful for, what style of football they play. Now, when you do put your heart over your head, like this, for example, when you do nail your colours to the mast, it's very rare the squad, the collection is actually complete. Now, I've got every card here, as you can see, none of them are missing. But in the team that actually won the league was James Sands, Ferrarison, maybe what I call him, and Gabby Perea, who never got cards in this season, which was very frustrating for me. And I've managed to get a New York City collection up to 3% with the new #1 goalkeeper. James Sands came back from his loan at Rangers. We'll pretend that didn't happen. I managed to get a jersey number of him as well. I like the rookie Ilinic, and I managed to get a Gabby Perea when he moved to Dubai. He's now a Red X card. But with those 4 cards alone, I'm getting to the 3% mark. I've also got a couple of other pieces here, as you can see. Jonathan Jimenez on auction and a Pellegrini. But I feel like when you do back a club, it does make sense to follow them season on season. Like you can see with Celtic, I've got 2 seasons worth of collections here as well. I've actually got 3 with Celtic. Because when you're building the collection in the first place, like I mentioned, that pain that you suffer in the initial part of you can't field them all because they're all in the same squad and you can only field 11. As that dissipates ever so slightly and guys move on, you will feel insecure at not having the backup left back anymore and not having the striker that always comes off the bench or having the star midfielder, he's been sold, the backups came in, or there's a new transfer, a guy without a card just came in, that kind of thing. So when you do, if you are going to commit to a collection to 4 or 5%, you are really backing to follow the club. Subsequently, I think that then kind of, I don't know if it obligates you, but you really need to be prudent with the next season edition there if you are going to be following them on and plugging some gaps with some transfers. So a 5% collection for me kind of also needs to have a 3% collection as a companion if you are really wanting that true squad coverage to maintain throughout transfer windows as cards go out and seek utility elsewhere. But like I said at the tip off of the video, guys, I need your help. As you can see with my rare collections, I'm rather happy with the defence and the midfield that I managed to build up. But for that 3%, for that 2% collection bonus, I've not really found a club that I can tap into a lot of attackers. Yeah, I've got that Take Kubo. I've got a Depay around here. I've got a Savio over there. All these guys, the Celtic cards, of course, haven't really been kicking off, and they don't have a collection of attackers around them that I really feel I could go and get a couple of cards in to build some depth, to build some options around some forwards that could synergize with a new collection, or even maybe an existing collection. But I've looked at the ones I've got already, and the forward areas are quite derelict. But if you can find a gem or two in the existing collections I'm tapped into, then fair enough. But I'm more after suggestions. Is there a club out there that you think is overstacked this season, last season, whatever, in the forward area and has a lot of very interesting and very exciting forward cards on Sorare this year? I'll feature the best suggestions in a video when I go on and I action some of this stuff in the next couple of weeks or couple of days or whatever it might be. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. On screen now is some other collection bonus videos that I made that I think you might like. I picked these ones. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.